All right, well, welcome back to Endeavorosity. This is going to be Act 1, Part 3, which means it's our final part to our first act, which is setting our ships to sail. In Part 1, if you'll remember, we actually built a boat. This still has my supports on it because it makes it sit really nicely. But I have versions here that have the supports pulled off of it. So it does float. It floats nicely. Part 1 had our deck as well. That was one of our more complicated parts. I made a hole in mine with square pegs. If you did not make it with square pegs, the square pegs are 2.5 millimeters on each side, and that allows me to make masts, as many masts as I want that will be able to fit into that. So that was part 1. Part 2 gave us our sails. That allows us to catch our wind. We made these out of coffee filters. The positive part of coffee filters, of course, is that they are cheap, they are plentiful, and they do a great job. You can cut them, mark them, and make them as sails. The negative part is that once they get wet, they're kind of ruined. You can dry them out again, but they do get wet. So there might be other materials we'll use. You could also spray these with something that would be water resistant, which would keep the water out of it, but just try not to get your boat to tip over. These fit in really nicely right in there. I did make the mast at 2.15. You might have seen that a diameter or each side of this rectangular prism is 2.5 across, and then I made this 150 tall by 80 and 60, and hopefully you saw that in my previous version. This thing does a really great job of catching the wind and sailing. And how do I know that? Because now at part 3 we are building our lighthouse. Now, before I get going with this, one of the most important things is this is not the final iteration. There's going to be a final one that I'll put together and I'll show you in class or maybe show you in a future video some of the changes that I made. This is not even my first one. My first one looks like this. And I'll explain some of the pitfalls of what I did in terms of making this that maybe you fall into as well. But measuring is one of the most important things. So let me walk you through the different parts of this so you guys understand what's important about this. Number one, the purpose for this is twofold. It's a lighthouse, which means it'll have a light up here. You'll notice there's a little hole right there on the top. That's to be able to signal ships when they're getting close to shore so that they don't crash into it. We'll be putting the light in a future video where you'll see the final design for this. So I have this as my lid. This lid has two parts to it. The two parts are super glued together. And one of the reasons why is because it has kind of this little embedded lip here so that it fits really nicely over the top of this. All right, so it fits cleanly over the top of this. So we have our wind. This will be the propeller that turns and blows your ship out to sea. It has a switch right over here on the top, right over here on the side, I should say, that will turn on and turn off, which is going to be really important. If you followed our design for making the cars, of course, that should be fairly easy for you getting that into place. It has this little slider panel right here. Now, you'll see the first mistake I made, which was in measuring back here. Yes, even your teachers will have challenges measuring, but it has our battery pack in here. And then it has our motor back in here with, of course, a hole in the front so that it can go through to there. So this should all fit inside. And once I get the measurements right and I build the final model, it will fit in here without me having to kind of push it into place like this and then slide this in place. Now, this is very satisfying if you make it to the right dimensions and that slides in place neatly. And then you can see the insides of it right there. I'm making it a little bigger so that it fits that a little better. All right. So then this will just fit right on top and it's a nice little design. All right. So without any further ado, let me show you my final design in Tinkercad. And then I'll kind of walk through a couple of the things that are going to be important for you as you get ready to do this. But I think you'll have a lot of fun making this. And then you'll have what some people call a desktop fan. Yes, you can just put it on your desktop during the summertime and let it blow cool air on you as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you what I have here at the final. So you'll notice a few things. This final design is much taller. All right, much taller. We've got some windows here on the side. You have a hole right here for the switch, which I have made a little bit larger. I made a mistake with that the first time. I made it way too big, and then I made it too small, so it wouldn't fit in. So anyway, I've made it to the size where it'll fit right there, and I'll show you the dimensions of that in just a minute. Over here, you'll notice I have the plate that slides into a groove here, and then I have my top, and I have my cap. So I call this the cap that fits over the top, and then onto that is glued this so that it doesn't have to build support. So I made those in two separate pieces. All right. So let me go ahead and walk through a few things on here, and then honestly, I'm not going to give you all the dimensions. Remember, one of our key things is that we make prototypes, we measure, we make things exactly in Tinkercad because all of our mistakes get amplified if we don't do it the right way. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make this base piece here with some of the other components. So without any further ado, let's get back into a brand new design over here. New 3D design. We've got a nice open work plane. Now, a few things that are important. You're going to have to fit in a battery pack, a switch. You're going to have to fit in a motor housing, and you want to make sure that the propeller, or now the fan, is far enough away from the top so that it does not hit the top component right here. All right, I made that mistake a couple times. And then, of course, your motor is going to need something to be able to poke through here at the very end. So you got to think about how all of those are going to fit. One of these basic battery packs, so let me give you a few measurements that might be really important to this. Number one, your battery pack. You can either mount your battery pack sideways or you can mount it vertically. If you're going sideways, the battery pack is about 55 centimeters wide. 55 centimeters wide. Of course, that would be tall as well. Now, I made mine actually fit in vertically, and the reason I made it fit in vertically is because I didn't want my lighthouse to be really wide. So I'm putting it in vertically, and it's also about 30 millimeters wide. So once again, 55 millimeters tall, 55 millimeters tall, and about 30 millimeters wide. All right, maybe a little bit bigger. Now, when you put these dimensions in, or you have to think about these dimensions, you want to make sure you give a little bit of clearance. You don't want it to fit in perfectly. You want to make it so that it can fit in kind of sideways. And you can we'll actually use hot glue gun to be able to mount this once you have it set. All right. So that's the measurements for this. It also will be about 2 centimeters high. So once again, 55 by 30 by about 15. All right. You're going to have a switch. There's a couple different types of switches. I'd like you to measure yours. All right. So on these, you'll notice there's these little pieces right here on the sides. These push in, but just a little bit, so they snap into place really snugly. So these will go in, and you can actually mount these nicely inside your unit. And then, of course, you have one of these, and the width of one of these for mounting these is about 45 millimeters, about 45 millimeters across. So 45 millimeters across, and it's about also 17 millimeters high. All right. I want the width of my walls to be 3 millimeters. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to make this 3. Okay, so it's going to be really thin. I'm going to make it 50 wide. All right. And I'm going to make the height of this be about 120. Now, yes, that's one of the taller things that we're making. I'm going to move this closer to me. All right. So you'll notice, once again, you can check your measurements right here, 50 wide by 3 by 50 by 3 by 120. All right. Now I'm going to duplicate this a couple times, but just to show you what I'm working with here, I can actually change my angle here, 90 degrees, so that you can see this from the side as well. So now it's perfectly 90 degrees. Now I'm going to duplicate this, Command D or Control D, and then I can pull this apart over here. And I'm going to turn this 90 degrees again. Here we go, 90 degrees. So now it's turned 90 degrees. And I'm going to put this right here at the end. I'm going to have it overlap. All right, so let me look at the top here. I'm going to have this overlap so that it fits in perfectly. All right, we can take a look here, and I'm going to have it line up right there. Okay, you can see. You can also use the alignment tool, which we've used a lot, which is really useful to be able to do that, but it just clicks into place very nicely there. So I've got one overlapping the other there. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate this again, Command D, Control D, depending on what you're using. And I'm going to pull this one over to this side, and I'm going to make sure that it lines up. Yep, it lines up perfectly. There we go. So now I've got the three sides to this, and I'm going to put a bottom on this as well. I keep forgetting. I should have put a bottom to start with. And I'm going to make my bottom 50 by 50. Make it 50. I'm going to center this so it's easier to look at. And I'm going to make it 50 over here. And I'm going to make it 3 high. All right, so now I've got a base plate. I can go back out. I'm going to take these 3 items, this, and then hold down Shift. Remember to select more things. And I'm going to join them into one shape. So now I can move that whole shape together. I'm going to put it right here, over top this. Let me take a look at this, see if that lines up. It lines up fairly closely, but not precisely. So let me just see if I can move this. Sometimes it's a little tricky. There's ways to do it by just pressing the arrows. I know some of you are watching this. They're like, Mr. Reed, I can do that better than you. Great, do it. All right, there. I think that should line up. Yep, lines up now perfectly. So now I can actually make this into one shape. I'm going to group all of this together. So now I've got myself one shape, and I can move this around wherever I want. All right, I can back out, and I've got my one long shape. I'm actually going to make another platform underneath it. I'm going to make this platform just a little bigger. So I made that a hole. I'm going to make it a solid. Let me make this one 60 by 60. And I'm going to make it about, once again, 3 high. And then I'm going to put this on top of this. I'm going to try and center it. Now, just for practice on the alignment again, I can hold that Shift and press that. I can line this up, and now I can just press this, and they are perfectly centered. All right. I also don't want it kind of sunk in like that. I want this shape on top of it. So I'm going to raise this up a bit so that it's sitting on top. All right. So now you've got the basic shape of what I had, the basic shape. So there's my basic lighthouse. Now, to keep on moving with this, I'm going to put a few more things in there. And once again, my purpose is not for you to copy me precisely. So I'm going to, let's see. Oh, the first thing I want to do is put that back gate on, the sliding panel. So I'm going to start with another panel that's similar to this. I'm going to break it apart. I'm going to select just the one side, and I'm going to Command D for duplicate. I'm going to move it off to the side here. Now I'm going to take this. I'm going to regroup all of these again because I don't want those to be ungrouped. And I'm going to lay this panel flat down. So I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to end up turning it 90 degrees again. Let's see here. And if I move it right to there, that's 90 degrees. Then I'm going to lay it flat on the workplace, on the work plane, I should say. And then I've got what I have here is the third piece or the fourth piece, the wall, the one that will slide in and out of there. Now, I'm going to actually take this, and I am going to duplicate this again, and I'm going to move it off to the side here. So now I've got 2 precise ones. This one, I'm going to make it a little bit thinner. So you'll notice here's mine, and I'm going to make this one, let's say, 48. And still 120 tall. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to actually pick this back up. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. Now it's standing up. And I'm going to put this back into place over here. Now, those of you watching this and you're thinking, Mr. Reed, there are some things, ways that you do this that I would not do. That's great. You do it your own way. All right. So I'm going to place this in place here. And I am going to center this again so I can see it. Move it down a little bit. And now I'm going to scoot this over and back just a little bit. Now you'll see right in here, now we've got a space here. Everyone see that? This is now embedded there. And I believe if I did this right, it goes down a little bit too. So I can sink this down. Let's make it just a little taller, 122. The reason I'm going to make it a little taller is because I want to pull this down just a little bit. I want to sink it in to the base so that it'll have a slot here. Now I'm going to make this a hole. And I'm going to highlight everything. And I'm going to group everything together. And now once you see it's union grouped like this, now you'll see a slot here where everything will slide into. Everyone see that? There's a cool slot right there. All right. Now, the one thing I did find is that when I did that, that because of the way things print, it's hard for things to print when it's exact. It tries to fit in precisely. And so I'm going to make this just a little bit different, the dimensions of this. I'm going to make this 120, and I think that was what I said before. I'm going to make it yeah, let's just stick with 120 for that. And then I'm going to make my width of this, instead of 50 across, I'm going to make it 40. So 46.5 should give it room to fit. And then I'm going to actually change the thickness of it too. So it's not going to be so thick that it won't squeeze in there. So I'm going to change that from 3 to 2.4. The next piece that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put in our motor housing. So for our motor housing, now many of you guys have this on file. It's in the Endeavorosity piece, but it's the 130 holder. All right, I'm going to put this in place. I'm going to import this, and you'll notice it's going to come in right here. I don't want it there. I want it over here. So I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to raise this up. Now I want to make sure that this is up against the side, so it's not just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to pull it this way, and I'm going to embed it. It's going to be embedded right in the front. All right. So a few things. You want to make sure that this is in a place where it's going to fit through. And it's got enough clearance from the top. So you want to make sure it's got enough space so that the propeller can turn. That was one of my early mistakes. It didn't have enough space for the propeller to turn. So move that there. I'm going to scoot this over a little bit. And that should give me space for my propeller to turn. A few other things. I'm going to put a hole in place here for my switch. I'm going to make my switch dimensions. Let's make this. I'm going to make this the width of that so that I can push that through. The other dimensions are going to be, I'm going to make this 21.5. You do not have to make it 21.5. You should measure it on your own. Maybe I'll do 15. All right. And then I'm going to make sure that that pushes all the way through. All right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to push it through. I want to make sure it's seated on the other side. I can see it. Maybe I'll push it even just a little farther just to make myself feel more comfortable. There we go. Now it's through for sure. And I'm going to need to put a hole up there. So let's make this hole here. I don't want to take up the whole thing, so I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Hold shift so that it does it proportionally. And then I'm going to use it up to there. I'm going to try to center it. All right, so there we have one shape that's all unified now. All right, so you'll see I've got a hole over here on the side for my switch, which actually might be a little bit misplaced here. Maybe I should take this switch and move it over a little bit. All right, now I'm going to make my cap. And to make my cap, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to 60. And I'm going to make this one 60 as well. Let's center this so we could see it. 60 over here. And then I'm going to make my height 3. And on the inside of this cap, I'm actually going to make another piece that's going to embed it so that it can fit in nicely. All right, so you'll notice in this cap here, there's little ridges around the side so it fits on really cleanly on the top. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to make another one and put over here. I'm going to do this one at 50.2 by 50.2. And the height of this is only going to be 0.2. And then I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to press Shift and hold this one and do my alignment tool. I'm going to make this one my master. I'm going to press center, and then I'm going to raise it up. So now it's on the top and I'm going to make it a hole. Make it 2, not 0.2, everyone. So that's what I was making a mistake there and driving myself crazy. So now I'm going to join them together and now you'll see that it will cut a nice little ridge in there. There we go. Now we have our ridge. Now this piece is going to be our cap. We make one more thing, and that's going to be a hole in the center. I'm going to make my hole 2.5 by 2.5. And then I'm going to put it right here to the middle. I'm going to sink it down. And now I can take this. Actually, I'm going to make that. Let's actually make that in the middle, like I said I would. And we center it with this, center it with this. Don't just go by look. Actually, please just do it. Make it all go together. All right, so now we should have a hole in the middle of that. Have a hole right in the top of that. Now, I might want to switch the shape of that hole. I might have actually had a different shape for that hole before, but that should give you everything that you need to get started with your lighthouse. All right, so I'm really looking forward to seeing where you guys are at with this. I think you guys are going to make some really awesome lighthouses that are going to surprise me. You'll notice mine has windows on the sides. I just imported that. If you type window into the search column, you'll find window in there, and you can put any kind of window you want. I told you I wasn't going to show you everything at the very beginning, and you notice that I made some mistakes as I went through. I feel really confident that you guys are going to be able to make some great lighthouses, and I look forward to seeing them. All right? Up until then, happy building.